yet another amazing episode of Super Soul Sisters. We're in the great space here that has been given to us by Daughters Exclusive, or you can call it Doctors Exclusive here at Ginger Road Spear House. Beautiful space. You can always check it out. But again, with me, I'm with an amazing woman. She's a politician. She's a community organizer. She is an economist. And, of course, a number of other things she'll be telling us about as we get to know more about who she is and her life. And with me is Amoti Beatrice Kiraso. Well, some people will say Beatrice Kiraso, Amoti, it's the same thing. And she's been able to join us here for the Super Soul Sisters. She is a Super Soul Sister. We'll be finding out a whole lot more. But first of all, thank you so much for making time.
It's my pleasure.
Yes.
And thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. Busy time, I know, but you've made the time.
Thank you.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah.
So Super Soul Sisters, and we're focusing on your stories, as you know. So first of all, I know most people out there saying, I'm not Beatrice Kiraso. So they want to know who you are, you know. So let's start off. First of all, I know I just want to jump straight into the conversation.
No problem. Yeah.
Let's start off with knowing who you are, who your parents are. You know, let's start from the beginning. It's always good to start from the beginning.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you've already said the names, Rowena.
Yes.
I hail from Toro, Kabarole district, and I have a home in Karambi on Kasese Road, but my parents' home is on Kijura side.
Okay.
So that's where I came from, that's where I grew up from, that's where I studied from for my primary education.
Okay.
Yes.
So which schools? You said primary education.
Yeah, for primary education, I went to Kiburara Primary School. I moved on to Nyakasura School, the school.
Yes, the school.
Okay. And then I went to Chebambe Girls School for my HSC, from where I moved to Makerere University, where I did my Bachelor's of Arts degree in economics. And later, I went to Harvard University, Kennedy School of Government, where I studied a master's in public policy and public management.
What kind of child were you growing up?
Well, the kind of atmosphere we grew up in, I mean, people of my age, was a different one from the one of today where you're going to watch people getting crazy. No.
Yes.
First of all, I'm the firstborn in a family of 10 children. We are 5 girls, 5 boys. I'm the firstborn, followed by 2 boys, stubborn boys. So when you are the firstborn, there are some things that are not expected of you, or there are those that come to you naturally and you feel like you have to take that leadership role, even at home. So I think I must say I have taken the leadership role even at home as far back as when I was a child, meaning that you take a lot of responsibility around the house, ensure that things are in place, and you are the one being called upon all the time. We had maids and houseboys and what, but I had to ensure there are certain things that were meant to be done by myself. So, but in a way, I think I was also a bit stubborn and cheeky.
Yes.
But with very strict parents, you could only go so far, because for us, we grew up at a time when you had chiboko at home. You'd be, you'd be whipped and smacked for doing or not doing certain things. My childhood was interesting, but then it's only when you grow up and look back and then start to appreciate actually how interesting it was. Yes. We still talk about the kind of things we used to be beaten for. You know, they beat you for talking to someone you shouldn't talk to. Yes. I was fond of borrowing belts. I've never understood why, and I really hate borrowing.
Yes.
But for some reason in primary school, I would borrow a belt, somebody's belt. And in most cases, it would not be a school uniform belt. So definitely it was so glaring. You'd get home and mom would see the belt first thing. you know you're going to be beaten, but then somehow after a few more weeks, you borrow a belt again. So yeah, we had a lot of do's and don'ts. And I'm happy about it because that's something that has kept me and has pushed me to be what I am today.
Okay, interesting. So now you went to the school, Nyakasura School. What was that journey?
I started on the other side of the school, which is Kanonapolo, where the insolos or the freshers used to be.
Do you begin to identify who you are at this stage, or you're still just trying to figure out, like the rest of the students?
I think
go with the flow.
Yeah,
Go.
I think I think you're more or less basically trying to. You're just there. You know, you're going with the flow.
Yes.
You don't start identifying who you are until probably towards the end of your O-level,
Yes.
where you have to think seriously of what you want to be in future, therefore which subjects should you take, and to work towards that. But some people don't figure out who they want to be or who they are until they have even finished university. Others never do figure out at all until they are in advanced adult life.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think growing up as a firstborn, followed by boys, I had uncles who were young. So I was, most of the time I was among boys. And then I go to Nyakasura, I find it's a mixed school.
Yes.
As you know, I find that most of the time I was keeping company with boys. And up to today, it's something that has caught up with me. Most of my company is with men. That doesn't mean that I don't like women or I don't like associating with them, but I think from that childhood, I just found it easy to flow with the men.
Was that challenging, having lots of friends that were male friends? Because, you know, at that stage, so many girls are very aware of themselves. So not sure, because we're talking about confidence at some point with someone. So how was that for you? Did that help you build the personality you have today?
Yeah, actually it does build. Because rather than being conscious of your womanhood and how you should turn up to look so smart and so this and so the other, you are with the boys.
Yeah.
You know, you are with the boys.
Yeah.
You are more or less a tomboy. And what takes other girls' time, I found that it didn't take much of my time, unfortunately. So I tried later as I grew up, I tried later to be more of a girl than I should be, but or than I was in the past. Yes. But yeah, it did give me the confidence. And one thing I can say is I noticed the girls who used to come to HSC in Nyakasura from purely girls' schools. You know, you just come and all of a sudden you are here with boys and it's like a shock. It's like a cultural shock to them, and they didn't know how to behave. They didn't know, you know, how nice to be or how. But you know, when you've been used to being among boys and among men, and it's easier. You don't look at men and boys as the other sex. You look at them as companions to move along with, to face challenges together, but in most cases also to help you out. Because like in school, boys were very good at science subjects, and the girls we tended more towards the art subjects. But whenever you couldn't crack something, I would find it easy to move with the boys and, you know, revise together and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you leave Nyakasura, then you go to, you said Kiebambe? That was...
for HSC?
For HSC, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, in that year, the year before, Nyakasura had done badly in O-level. And my father, I think he was still a board chair of the school. He thought there were some issues that were not going right at the school. So he decided to change me to go to Kiebambe Girls' School for my HSC. Well, of course, I missed the school.
Yes.
I missed being with the boys and my girlfriends who had stayed behind to go to HSC. But we reconnected at university because most of them passed, most of my team.
Yes.
So we reconnected at university. So I went to Yabambe for my HSC, and I'm happy to say I did well.
Oh, yes.
I did very well
very
for
good.
my HSC.
So university, how, because there's that stage, usually the parents or people around you, they call relatives, they help you choose what you're going to study at the university, or, they used to, I don't know if they still do it for most of the children
The
today.
career
The career
guidance?
guidance.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they do.
what led you into going for the economics bit?
I had a passion for it. Actually, it started with O-level. I started with a love for commerce,
Yes.
the subject. And then I go to HSC, and I find that economics is not purely an arts subject, it's not purely a science subject.
That is true.
You're just in between there. It's so interesting because it's real world things. You see things, it's like you can touch them. And yeah, I had a passion for economics, and I was happy when it was like an automatic course for me.
So
And
what are some
also
of those,
at the A level, I had passed it well. So
okay,
yeah.
so that really pushed. So what are some of the things you look back to and say, this is a moment that is stuck in my mind, like a reminiscence of sorts from your childhood, growing up, something that you feel, oh, I would never forget this time?
Well, there are many things, but I don't know whether you're talking about good or bad.
Either way.
Except I'll give you.
You could share both.
I'll give you a very cheeky one. So here I am. I've gone to Nyakasura school. I've come from my village, Kiburara, Kijura side in Fort Portal. I get to Nyakasura, and the first weekend we go to the swimming pool to see people swimming. I sit there and watch, and I think, yeah, this is so easy. I think I can do
You can do it.
I'd never swum. I had seen a swimming pool, I think, at Mountains of the Moon when, your parents take you there for some function. So I look at these guys, they're swimming, and it looks so cool.
Yes.
What do? The next thing I start thinking, I think I should dive in there.
And see how it goes. Yes.
And see how it goes. Because I had watched twice, and I see they are doing it so well, and it's easy. The arms are moving like this. So shamelessly, I put off the dress and I remained in my panty, and I don't remember whether I had started wearing a bra, but I go on the diving board and I dive in the water. Yeah, I could have died. There were many lifesavers and the older students who could swim. I had no idea. So I gulped this water. I don't know, by the time they got me out, actually, I think I was unconscious for some time, so they had to press and get the water out of me, but I didn't stop. Instead of diving there again in that stupid manner, I decided to learn to swim.
Okay.
And I thought that was very daring.
I mean, you're still like, I think I can do this.
I think I can do it.
Oh, thank God you survived
but that
one.
defines me.
Yes.
Because there are many things I see, or I watch people do things, or I see achievers and I say, I think I can do it. Yes. And I go for it. Sometimes I hit the wall, I make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I don't like saying, I don't think I can do it. You start from the negative to look at, I don't think I can do it. Why?
Yeah.
At least give it a try. So I'm somebody who wants to try things, and that gives me...
I knew someone who said, try and fail, but do not fail to try.
To try, exactly.
That is very true.
And
so when that happens, you're like, I think now that this has happened, I need to learn so that it doesn't.
I need to learn so that I don't gulp this water again. Next time I'll die. But I didn't give up.
Okay, so what are some of the lowest moments growing up, though, before we get into the university stage and all of that? Because at that time, you probably learned a few ways around life. So what are some of the lowest moments then?
I think my lowest moment came a bit later, not when I was growing up. You know, when you're growing up, sometimes you don't know the low and the high.
Yeah.
because I must also be grateful to God that I grew up in a fairly decent home, in a very decent home and fairly protected. You are protected from certain shocks of the world.
Of the world, yes.
My grandfather was next to the school. We would all be there for lunch, so many grandchildren. So I didn't get so much growing up. But my first shocker was when I had finished university, I had actually even gotten married, is when my grandfather started ailing and then eventually he passed on. You know, it was like I had never experienced death that close. You hear of people who have died. We even lost a head boy when we were in primary school. We didn't go to school. We were so scared. But to get hurt, really hurt, that's when my grandfather passed away.
Which year was that?
And that must have been in 1990, it was 1990, 1991.
Oh, that's sad. So then you realize these things actually happen. And then you learn to deal with it slowly.
You learn to deal with it, and you learn to, to accept that, people will have to grow up and then go. But then later, of course, you start knowing that it's not only the grown-up who are dying. Then came the HIV/AIDS scourge, which took a lot of our contemporaries, so many friends, so many relatives. But that is a national thing. I wouldn't call it a law on me as a person. It was national. It was actually international. Yeah, so growing up, I can't find any...
Yeah, but so you dare yourself. So now, after university, what happens next here?
Yeah, what happens next is I have an uncle who is the last born of my father's, who is very close to me. Now he's a general in the army. By that time, he was in the army still. That was Obote's army.
Yes. And
we are very close. So as I'm finishing university, he's also being posted back to Kampala from Gulu. And he says, okay, I'll wait. He had gotten a house. I'll not move into the house. I'll stay in the officer's mess until you finish. So as soon as I finished university, I had a house.
Nice.
My uncle's house.
Nice.
Because I was like the chief there. So I moved to the house and we start our home together, my uncle and I. I start having the responsibility of ensuring there is this and that and the other in the house. But then he's also spoiling me to bits and, like I didn't suffer. When people are walking those streets, yes, when people are walking those streets, I do connect with them because people walk those streets 1 year, another year, looking for jobs, putting up in places that are not home, places of people that are not even their close relatives. It's such a challenge, and I know how it can be. So I was lucky in that regard. But maybe for the people that are listening to me, I would like to encourage that young people could get together and start looking for opportunities jointly of where to stay. I know it's not easy because you don't have income. But believe you me, some relatives don't want to stay with people for prolonged periods of time. And that time, the situation was different. If you've not been taken by the public service, there were a number of state enterprises or parastatals. The Coffee Marketing Board, Lint Marketing Board, Producer, Uganda Commercial Bank, and so on and so forth. So I move in with my uncle and I start looking for a job at my own pace until eventually, like a year later, I got a job.
That's nice. So your first job?
My first job, do you know Serefako Consultants? Do you know somebody called Karuhanga Chapa?
Oh, yeah.
The FTC man. That man was my first employer, and I'm so proud about it because He too is very proud when we meet. I
Yes.
remind him that I don't have to remind him. He treated me very well, like a real fresh graduate. So Serifaco Consultants was an agro-business consultancy firm. I would run around, do some research, some data collection, data entry, and so on and so forth. But that was my first job. And from there, I got employed by the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
So now I go into civil service.
Yeah. So how long are you there now when you get into the finance aspect?
Into the Ministry of Finance, I was a finance officer in the Economic Affairs Department. And while I was in the Ministry of Finance, the government decided to centralize the procurement function of government. So they formed a directorate of central purchasing so that all procurement of government goods and services is done centrally. So the Central Purchasing Directorate under the Ministry of Finance needed some people to be seconded there. And I must say, honest people. Yeah. So anyway, our PSST then, Mr. Kahoza, is now an old man, retired, seconded me there as one of the people to do the procurement. I did training in the US and I became one of the first procurement managers in the government Central Purchasing Directorate. And I think a year or two down the line, again, government decided that it becomes a corporation so that it is semi-autonomous away from government as a department of the ministry. So we had a choice, those of us who had been seconded, either to move with the corporation or to stay in the mainstream civil service. But I chose to go the other way. I went with a corporation. And I worked with the government Central Purchasing Corporation up to 1996, when I decided to give a shot at representing the people of Kabarole district in Parliament.
Yes. So let's first go back to this entire journey. You start to work and, well, now you have the experience. Did you ever have any kind of gender discrimination along that process? Because it's a journey that we've been on.
Actually, come to think of it, even when I go back to school, as I said, I would be among boys.
Yes.
But if you're friends with a male counterpart, friend really, not counterpart,
Yes.
the minute you beat him in certain subjects, he gets angry, very angry. And yet he doesn't get as angry if he's beaten by a fellow boy. That one now, it's thinking back.
Yes.
With hindsight, I think that used to happen. But the minute you move out of that student life and then move into the real world, it's unbelievable. That time maybe it was worse than it is now, because now there is more acceptance that women can measure up to men in certain things. But the discrimination on the job front is definitely there. Not that you'll be given less marks as you do an interview, but in the workspace, there are those of you that look at you as a woman, right? A woman to be befriended.
Oh, yes.
A woman to use as a woman.
As a woman, yes.
Then there are those who look at you and think they should be better than you. They should be the ones to get the promotion. If you get a promotion, then it's because a certain man maybe likes you. You know that kind of stuff?
It's never...
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. And I'm not saying men don't try to befriend these women, but not every woman achieves what they do because men have wanted to sleep with them. That is wrong.
That is true. No, I think this is something the men also come up with, to sort of maybe because...
Exactly. But unfortunately, even some fellow women, they do fall into that. Say, I think she got this because she's this, because she must... And yet... you can even be friends with those people at work, just friends.
Now, wouldn't that be the confidence issue?
Yes.
The men trying to say, no, this is not your place originally, you're supposed to go back.
Exactly.
And the women saying, I don't think I would do that.
Yes, it is the confidence issue. And some women, poor them, fall by the wayside and get scared and get traumatized and get discouraged instead of going for their goals.
Yes.
Because they are saying this and that and that and the other. But then let's also look at the women who get married to men who have got that insecurity around them. He knows you have to work, and where you work there are men and women. But then the fact that there are these men seeing you every day also works on them, and some men have failed their women to work because of...
True. So then you go, after getting into the corporation, now you've moved away from the ministry itself and now the corporation. Then you say, let me go and represent the people of Kabarole. What pushed you to that one?
It was something that came naturally. First of all, I had already started getting involved in community development projects. You know, you hear there's something being done, especially for women, improving their incomes, improving their skills. So I had, together with someone that I was going to replace, and I'll tell you how I came to replace her, Ambassador Joan Rabiomere. She was the first member of parliament for that position. When she was elected, a short while after, she was appointed as a deputy Director General of the External Security Organization. And because we had been working closely together on some of these things, and even with some of the women leaders, I was known. I didn't have to go introduce myself and, you know, to struggle so much to introduce myself. I had been involved in church things, fundraising for this, fundraising
so basically
for that
you're a very
school.
active person.
I was active, and of course the name, because of the family, the name was known. And the position falls vacant. So we caucus and talk about it, and I say I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah.
And I can proudly tell you that when I went, I was unopposed. In my first term, I was unopposed to come to Parliament in 1996. And formed the WOSDEP, which is the Women's Skills Development Project. I used to get money from some donors here and there, get women groups. I was working very closely with the Women Council.
So what are the things you identified? Because now you're working with women, you're a woman yourself. Probably the women were now expecting much more that you are representing. The key things that are holding some of these women back.
Some of them actually are beyond an individual called a member of parliament. Most of women's issues are national issues. They're actually global issues. And as far as our budgets do not factor in gender sensitivity, which they most times don't, then will not help these women get out of where they are. Women are poor because women are illiterate, I mean compared to men, especially the rural women. Women do not have property. They don't own property. You know, in our traditional settings where even if you're married for 20 years, the man can still say, one of these days, I'll get rid of you. It's only now, with a bit more of information and, you know, civil awareness, that people are getting to know that, oh, wait a minute, you mean I'm a co-owner here? I'm a shareholder in this home. By that time, women were all like, they were subjects. They were under the men. So having no property is something that's very serious, because if you don't own any asset, you cannot even get a loan. You cannot access capital. If we do not address at national level the energy issue, it means women will continue to have a kid on the back and firewood, a bunch of firewood on their head. For me, to pick women from a district and say we are giving women affirmative action so that they can go to parliament, I don't think that solves the problems of 60% of this population, half of whom are in rural areas, poor, not properly educated, owning nothing, having no energy sources or water sources near them.
You're watching Super Soul Sisters, and this amazing space has been given to us by Daughters Exclusive. You can call it Doctors Exclusive here at Ginger Road, of course, on Spear House, depending on how you choose to pronounce it, really. It's a free world. And of course, we are with Beatrice Kiraso Amoti, and they say once an honorable, always and honorable. And she's telling us her story, really. And there's so many women out there, I will be honest with you, that when they are vocal, when they speak their minds, when they dare, then people begin to wonder, what is wrong with her? A question that shouldn't be asked to begin with. And that is why we're bringing these Super Soul Sisters here to tell us what their journey is like, simple or not simple, but they've gotten to where they've gotten because they said, hey, it doesn't matter what I am. It depends what I want to be in the future. Yes, so you were telling us about some of the challenges you've identified.
Yeah, well, I joined Parliament. One thing I had gone to Parliament determined to do was to find my niche. I did not want to be a jack of all trades because I had been watching parliamentarians who talk about almost each and everything under the sun. And when you talk about each and everything under the sun, you're giving general comments. Yeah. So again, I said finance. So I joined the Committee on Finance, and there was the Honorable Manzi Tumboine, who was our chairman of the committee. I found very good people, really. The Committee on Finance, you know, scrutinizes the budget of the Ministry of Finance. It looks at some of those parastatals which are under the Ministry of Finance. But then there was also the Committee on State Enterprises and Statutory Corporations, what they are calling COCASE now. So I was on both. You could be on two. After about a year or a year and a half, Honorable Manzi Tumboine gets appointed to a ministerial post. So I look around and I'm like, I'll go for it. I'll go for the chair of this committee. I had not even been his deputy, but I think I had become a very vocal member and a resourceful one. Because even in those committees, when you see committees of 10, 15 people, don't think all of them do the work. A few people will go research, do the work, and they will lead the discussion. So, and that time we had gone through the privatization of UCB that had gone bad, the Uganda grain milling. I mean, there was a lot of... and I was in the middle of that because I was also on the committee that investigated those frauds. Convened as a committee to choose the new chair and the new deputy chair. We were three. Two men, one of whom, my very good friend, had been my boss at the Government Central Purchasing Corporation, Honorable Tim Luanga. So Tim had been the Director General of the Government Central Purchasing, where I was his officer. And here we are on the same committee. So
and you're saying, I want the same position.
I want the same position. So he registers, I also do. Because we had to register, and then they conduct proper elections. The other one, I think, was the late James Mwanda. I don't know whether you know him or you remember him. He was disabled. No, I think we were three. I don't remember the third one. So 3 men and myself. And then we start voting. So we voted. We didn't even go to round 2. There was no rerun. So, there was no rerun. So no, I didn't know it was. I was looking at these people and saying, I want it. I want to be the chair of this committee. Everybody was saying the same. You talk about yourself and what you think you can do. And so after the first round of votes, I was the chair of the committee. During my time as the chairperson of the Committee on Finance, together with the chairperson of the National Economic Committee was Honorable Isaac Musumba, I initiate the establishment of a budget committee, a budget office, and the budget, under the Budget Act. When I was re-elected in 2001, I was like the automatic chairperson of the budget committee, so I was the first chairperson of the budget committee. My first term in Parliament, we formed the Young Parliamentarians Association. Wow. We used to have a ball. Every weekend we would take off to one of the corners of Uganda, with one of us being the host, two actually, because we would have a function on Saturday and another one on Sunday. And these were fundraisings. So we traversed this country, we held fundraisings, we made Parliament popular.
Yes.
Even the people who were against it, thinking that we were forming something that was anti-government, it started working against them, then they joined. They joined in. Yeah, it was very interesting.
It was a good time at Parliament.
At the time of being re-elected for the second term, that I made up my mind, but I didn't tell anybody. Because when campaigns came and re-election came, then I saw the other side, the ugly side of politics. And I thought, I thought I didn't deserve that, because in my own estimation, maybe I overestimated myself. I thought I had really worked for the people of Kabarole. I thought I had put Kabarole on the map. I thought I had chaired these committees. I had attended international conferences. I had. You know, when you think you've done so well and so great for your area. And then come the elections, the campaigns were a bit ugly. It went a bit personal on me. And I thought, then I remembered in my first year in university, I think it was a political science course where we were being taught about committing class suicide, where you leave your class and you commit suicide by going to another class to do things that are not really your thing. And then I said, no, I think, yes, I want to serve, but if this is what I have to go through to serve, I said, no, this is not what I'm going to sign up for. So I go through that campaign, I win, but it left some bitterness in me. Towards the end of the term in 2005, where the term was going to end in 2006, I called my people meaning from every sub-county I had a team of leaders. So I invited people to my house. I slaughtered for them a bull. I called in the bishops. We prayed. We served. And they were waiting for me to launch the campaign for the following year. So I went to the podium and said, I've come to thank you for having given me an opportunity to represent you, for having allowed me to go to the national platform. And here I am. I want to say farewell. Here I am. I'll not be contesting again. It was such a blow. It was bad. But I had taken my decision. So that's around the time when multipartyism had been, we had changed the constitution to go into multiparties. Even the president called me to say, why are you, because it was headlines, why are you leaving politics? Do you want to go to opposition? I said, no. What do you want to do? I said, I've got some offer from the World Bank. And I had gone with my letter, I showed him. He said, no, you're not going there. Those institutions will make you a clerical officer. You should stay here and work together. And I said, well, I stay here and do work together where, Your Excellency, you know? Nice, eh? So eventually he asks me after a few days if I will take on the position at the East African Community, where government was expected to nominate a Deputy Secretary General. I accepted. Long story short, that's how I left and went to the East African Community to be a Deputy Secretary General. A Deputy Secretary General is 3 years renewable once. So I got my renewal, and in 2012, by the time I finished my term at the EAC, I'd already been offered a job by the UN Economic Commission for Africa, where I moved on to become the director for the sub-region of Southern Africa. So from Tanzania, I moved to Zambia to work with the UN, UNECA. Okay. Later, I moved on to South Africa. I was reassigned to become a principal policy advisor on governance issues. And while I was there, I decided to take early retirement and come back home. Because I could have stayed until I'm 65. Yes. I'm not yet 65. I have a few years to 65. So, yeah,
so
I
you
could.
Said, no, let me go
because
back
for
home,
the UN, you can stay until you are 65. But one thing I've also noticed, if you're out of the country and you are working and developing something at home, you'll be lucky if 50% of your money does what it's intended to do.
Yes.
That is one. The other aspect of it is the longer you stay out of the country, the more you lose out here, both on the social networks, but also on the ideas of what to do at a certain point. I've seen people retire and then come from New York or Brussels or wherever. They cannot find their bearings. They can't find their, They are trying to build. They are trying to buy a farm. You've never run a farm, for God's sake. You don't know what to do with a farm, and you think you're going to start at 70. You don't know who to employ. You don't know who to work with. The people you knew are those that you left when you left university. I mean, it becomes all so complicated. And for me, also around that time, I had many considerations. My children had been in the UK. They had finished their school. My daughter, I thought she would want to get a job there. She's an engineer. She said, no, I want to go home. I want to go back home. So here are my kids coming back home. Okay, they are not kids, they are adults. Yeah, they're not adults. But they're only two. So, they're only two. So I'm like, what am I? So they want to come back. My parents are getting old. I know we are many, but I had that, to say I need to be near. I need to be near to do certain things. Fine, others can also do certain things, but there are those that I wanted to do myself. And then I wanted to develop myself here, and I found out that you don't need to go get those dollars, live in, nice places, to save money and start from zero when you are that age. So yeah, because I had been investing here and there in farming and other things, I decided to come back, set up my own private consultancy firm to continue with the farms that had been running on telefarming. You know telefarming? Can you please go and go and fence that paddock? Which one? You've not seen it?
Well, there you have it. We're taking a very quick break, and then we shall be back as soon as possible to continue this conversation in our last bit. Don't go away. Super Soul Sisters, as you can see, the conversations are quite interesting. We're walking through these journeys with our guests every time so that we can know what they've been through, what they've experienced. Quite interesting stories, if I must say. And of course, just a reminder, we are here at Daughters exclusive. You can call it Doctors Exclusive here at Ginger Road, and that is at Spear House. You cannot get lost. It's just around the corner if you're in the Ginger Road. Now, of course, still with me, is Beatrice Kiraso, Amoti. And she's told us her journey. Now we've reached retirement stage. People, I think you're enjoying this one. So now we've reached retirement. You retired so early. Most people are still planning at 65, when do I retire?
No, it depends what one calls retiring.
Yes.
Because I work, Rowena, I work. I do consultancy work, and when I have work, I wake up and go on the desk, sometimes up to late hours of the night. I wake up like a student who is going to do prep. Okay?
Yes.
I work, but I'm not employed.
Oh, yes. So you retired from the employment
I retired from formal employment, but I work now on my own. I go to the farm.
Yes.
I have a farm. I walk. I usually cook on Sundays when my children come home.
Come home, yeah.
And I love cooking. I love coconut chicken and coconut fish.
Nice.
Oxtail. I always keep trying out new things. There are things I invent for myself, but there are those that are usually known by everybody. Or if I don't have anybody coming to eat the food, I just leave the maid to cook and I eat whatever she cooks. So I'm not someone who loves eating so much, but I love more cooking than eating. Yes.
Okay. Do you have any regrets?
In my life?
Yes, where you're like, maybe I should have. Maybe I shouldn't have.
I got married and divorced after having 2 children. Now, with hindsight, maybe, but it's something I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Something, I despised really having children from different men. But now, with hindsight, maybe I could have had 2 more.
I know what you're saying. You could have. Yeah.
I could have.
Because now you're feeling like, now they've grown and I'm...
Even these 2 would have grown, but at least I would have more.
Others left to deal with.
Yeah.
So even you forgot the hustle that easy. That children are young, they're hectic.
So now I'm trying to catch up with my daughter's kids, the grandchildren. So I'm always like, when are they coming?
Yes.
Yeah, so... But yeah, it's not something that I put so much my mind to, but with hindsight, honestly, I could have had another 2 kids.
Maybe you could have, yes.
Yeah, I could have.
But you had your principles then.
Yeah, because once the marriage was over, like, no.
So finally, simple or over the top?
No, I'm simple.
Simple is good.
You can tell. You can see.
Yes, I can see that.
Simple.
Thank you so much. Well, that's the time we had for you this particular day for our Super Soul Sisters. And it's been quite interesting. Every time to walk, well, almost walk the same footsteps with our guests who come here and tell us their stories. And we get to know them much better, much more interesting things to find out and figure out. But no, I wouldn't do that. Now that I know, I wouldn't do that.
Which one?
She said, you know what? If that's happening, I can do it because it seems very easy. I mean, don't hold yourself back. That's what we're talking about. You can do it, definitely. Thank you so much. Beatrice Kiraso has been here with us.
My pleasure.
And quite an interesting discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you as well for watching. My name is Rowena Kajumba, Super Soul Sisters. Till next time.